This month we're going to talk about fire safety. Let's start out by talking about general guidelines for fighting fires. Fire extinguishers must be easily accessible at all times. They should be put in areas that are not cluttered or obstructed by boxes, chairs, or anything that's going to prevent you from getting to that extinguisher fast. And this goes for vehicle extinguishers too. You shouldn't have your vehicle extinguisher underneath a pile of stuff that you're going to have to dig through to get to it. It should be easy to get to. You don't want to place the extinguishers on the ground. You want to mount them in a way that they can't easily fall and injure someone. This picture is of a fire extinguisher in the lab building. It's inside a cabinet that's easy to get to and it's out of the way. This is one example of how they can be mounted. Do you see a problem with this fire extinguisher? Well, there's a barrel in front of it, there's poles leaned around it, there's junk piled in the area around it, and there's spider webs all over it and on the wall around it. It's not going to be easy to just grab and go and use this extinguisher. This area should be free of obstruction and cleaned up. Do you see any problems with this fire extinguisher? It's in a nice clean area that's marked with a sign indicating where the extinguisher is located. But someone's placed a pole in front of it, blocking that area. That pole needs to be relocated to another spot so that the fire extinguisher is easily accessible. This is an up-close picture of a pressure gauge you will find on some fire extinguishers. You want the needle to be pointing to the operable range. This gauge is not. To be in operable range, it would be pointing to the green area. This gauge is showing that it has been used or may be leaking and has lost pressure. It needs to be recharged or possibly needs to be replaced. Fire extinguishers should be marked with a locator sign so that they are easy for someone to find during an emergency. After you've used a fire extinguisher, you should never put it back on the wall or back in a vehicle, even if it was only used for a few seconds. Once that fire extinguisher has been used, it's not going to operate correctly due to the pressure inside leaking out. The extinguisher should be replaced or recharged as soon as possible. There are 3 elements you need to make fire. You need heat, fuel, and oxygen, and those 3 things together produce a chemical reaction that is fire. Heat is needed to reach ignition temperatures, and fuel or a combustible material is needed to feed the fire, and you need oxygen to sustain the combustion. A fire is prevented or extinguished by removing any one of those 3 elements. You should keep fuel and ignition sources separate. A fire naturally occurs when the elements are combined in the right mixture. Fires are classified according to the type of fire that is burning. So what type of material that is on fire is how you're going to classify it. So if you have paper or wood burning or maybe something electrical or even a grease fire, those are all different classifications. It's very important to understand the different classifications because understanding will allow you to correctly use the right fire extinguisher. If you were to use the wrong type of fire extinguisher on the wrong class of fire, there is a good chance you would not be able to control or even extinguish the fire. This is a chart of fuel classifications. Class A is common combustibles like wood, paper, cloth, or plastic. Class B is flammable or combustible liquids like gasoline, kerosene, methane, propane. Class C is energized electrical equipment like electrical wiring, maybe a fuse box. It can also be computers or appliances that are plugged in. Class D is combustible metals like magnesium, lithium, and titanium. Class K is cooking grease made from animal fat, and this is usually found in kitchen areas of restaurants and cafeterias. Most fire extinguishers will have a picture label telling you which types of fires the extinguisher is designed to fight. This picture is from an extinguisher in the lab building. This extinguisher has directions on how to use it on the label, and at the bottom of that label it's going to tell you what classification of fire it can be used for. and this label is showing A, B, and C because it's for multi-purpose use. Different types of fire extinguishers are designed to fight different classes of fires. The three most common types of fire extinguishers are water, which is class A, carbon dioxide, which is for class BC, dry chemical, which is for class ABC or just BC or just DC. Less common are dry powder, which is class C only, and wet chemical, which is class K. Let's go over the different types of extinguishers. This one is pressurized water for class A fires only. They extinguish a fire by cooling burning material below ignition point. So that's taking the heat element from the fire to put the fire out. Carbon dioxide is for class B or C fires. They're going to extinguish fires by smothering burning materials by displacing the oxygen. Multipurpose dry chemical is for class A, B, or C fires. These are probably the most common. They're going to extinguish the fire by smothering burning materials. This is going to separate the fuel from the oxygen in the air. Wet chemical is for class K fires. These are the ones that are going to be for restaurants or kitchens with grease fires. So they're going to extinguish the fire by cooling and forming a foam blanket to prevent the fire from reigniting. Dry powder is for class D fires. They're going to extinguish a fire by cooling and smothering. So the powder is going to act as a heat sink while forming a crust that will cut off the oxygen supply. Let's go over the anatomy of a fire extinguisher. You have a discharge lever at the top, and just under that you're going to have the discharge locking pin and seal. So if you have the pin in that lever, it's not going to move, but when you pull the pin out, you'll be able to press the lever down and it will allow the extinguisher to spray. The spray is going to come through the discharge hose and the discharge nozzle and out the discharge orifice. On most extinguishers, there's a pressure gauge found at the top just off the carrying handle. There should also be a data plate with instructions on how to use the extinguisher and what class fire it is for. And then you have the body of the extinguisher. So how do you use a fire extinguisher? There's an easy acronym that can be used to help you remember what to do. It's PASS. So you're going to pull the pin, you're going to aim the nozzle, you're going to squeeze the handle, and you're going to sweep side to side at the base of the fire. Pass. Pull the pin. This will allow you to discharge the fire extinguisher. The pin prevents the fire extinguisher from being accidentally discharged by squeezing the handle. Aim at the base of the fire. You want to hit that fuel. If you aim at the flames, the extinguishing agent will fly right through without stopping the fire. So you're going to aim at what is actually on fire. Squeeze the top handle after you remove the pin. Squeezing the handle opens a valve that releases the pressurized extinguishing agent from the fire extinguisher. And you're going to sweep from side to side until that fire is completely out. So start using the fire extinguisher from a safe distance, somewhere like 6, 8, even 10 feet away, and then slowly move forward if possible. Once the fire is out, keep an eye on the area in case it reignites. Here's some guidelines for fighting fires. Fires can be very dangerous, and you should always be certain that you will not endanger yourself or others when attempting to put out a fire. For this reason, when a fire is discovered, you should assist any person in immediate danger to safety. And if you can't accomplish this without risking it yourself, don't put yourself in danger. You should call 911 and activate the building fire alarm. The fire alarm will let others in the building know that they need to get out. If the fire is small and only after you've done these two things, you may attempt to use an extinguisher to put it out. Before deciding to fight a fire, you should keep these things in mind. Know what's burning. If you don't know what's burning, you don't know what kind of fire extinguisher you should use. Chances are you will know what's burning or at least have a pretty good idea, but if you don't, let the fire department handle it. The time to use a fire extinguisher is at the beginning stages of a fire. If the fire is already spreading quickly, it's best to simply evacuate the building. As you evacuate the building, if there's a door, you need to close it as you leave, and this is going to help slow the fire and the smoke. The final rule is to always position yourself with an exit or means of escape at your back before you attempt to use a fire extinguisher to put out a fire. In case the extinguisher malfunctions or something unexpected happens, you need to be able to get out quickly. You don't want to become trapped by the fire. And this is a good example in this picture. The man has his back to the door and he's spraying the fire as he's backing out of the room. Never fight a fire if you don't know what is burning. If you don't know what's burning, you don't know what type of extinguisher that you need to use. If the fire appears too large to handle with one extinguisher, if the fire is spreading rapidly beyond the spot where it started, or you don't have an adequate or appropriate fire extinguisher, if there's any chance you might inhale toxic smoke, or your instincts are telling you just not to do it. Each building should have an emergency evacuation plan posted, and they should be posted in a central location in the building. This is an example of the one that is posted in the lab building. You should have an emergency evacuation plan to make sure everyone knows what to do in the event of an emergency. If you have any questions or comments, I'll try to answer them. You can call me at extension 104 or stop by and ask for Mary Beth in the lab building.